Booktube. Booktube is a part of YouTube where we talk about books, where we review books, and some booktubers even write books. Hello, my name is Jim. Welcome to my Booktube channel about books, reading, and stuff. I have read some of these books. I have 10 of them on my Kindle app on my phone, and I've also requested one from NetGalley. Apart from the one from NetGalley, these ones I've all spent my own money on them. Nobody asked me to review them. It was my own choice to review them. The first one I read was The Keening by Margaret Pinard. I've had a lot of interaction in comments with Margaret Pinard. I went into a book with a little trepidation in case I didn't like it. What should I do if I didn't like it? I think what I would have done if I hadn't liked it would be to just DNF it and not say anything, but I needn't have been worried. I loved the book. The Keening is the story of these crofters from Scotland who are trying to eke out a living on their land, farming kelp and doing other things, and they're thrown off the land by the laird who wants to put the land over to sheep farming. First they move down to Glasgow, and then they move across the ocean to Nova Scotia, New Scotland. And it's about this family and their trials and tribulations they go through, and it's a fascinating read. And it's the first of a trilogy. You can read it as a standalone, The Keening, but there are two other books, The Grasping Root and StormWrack and Spindrift. Of these, I gave the first two 5 stars, and I gave the last one 4 stars. The last one I didn't like as much because the two main protagonists split up in there, so you got two different narratives. I prefer it when the people stay together, but this is just a personal preference. It's a very interesting read. The historical accuracy seems very good. The characters are well drawn, and I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend The Keening to anybody that likes historical fiction. It's set in the 1820s in Scotland and Canada. The second booktuber whose work I read was Dane Cobain. Dane Cobain lives in High Wycombe. He's originally from the Midlands, I believe, in England. And I read Scarlet Sins. I wasn't impressed with the cover. I don't think the scarlet with a background of red works very well, but that's, again, it's my personal viewpoint. Scarlet Sins is a mixture of short stories and songs, and with most collections of short stories, there'll be some good ones and some bad ones. For me, the standout story was The Hanging Man, cogitating on the meaning of death and what might come after it. I learned a lot from this book. I learned that the calls of babies born with calls are considered very lucky by sailors, and they'll pay a premium price for them. And the songs at the end didn't interest me. I'm not interested in reading song lyrics, whether it's by Dane Cobain or Bob Dylan or whoever. But the short stories were good, and I look forward to reading future books by Dane Cobain. Then I read Mark Nash, 28 Far Cries, which was a collection of flash fiction. Mark Nash is very verbose. He paints with words. I think these stories are best read 1 or 2 at a time, and then you let them settle in your mind. He has such a wide lexicon and some great stories in there. Next we have Dutch Coffee Shop by J. Scully. J. Scully has the channel Scully's House of Thrillers, which I'd recommend you check out. I'll put links to all the channels in the show notes below. His videos are very inventive, using graphics and using his voice and other effects to great effect. And Dutch Coffee Shop is about an American from down south in Mississippi who's accused of a murder, and he flees America and goes to the Netherlands, and he ends up in the town of Terneuzen in the south of the Netherlands and working for a gangster. And it's about selling cannabis and other things like this. It's a gangster thriller with a side dose of space cake. It's quite trippy. Served Cold is not one booktuber but several. It's an anthology of horror tubers. The foreword is by Steve Donahue. Steve Donahue is the most prolific booktuber I know, and he reads an awful lot, and it's an entertaining foreword. Dane Cobain, who I mentioned earlier, is also in the anthology, but the two stories that stood out for me were not by booktubers or authortubers I don't know. They were Frostbite by Alfie Talbot and Water of Life by Gloria McNeely. Of all the books I've read by booktubers, my favourite is Pae Veo's The Perelin Decline, which I read in September. It's about this girl Simone, who comes out of a clinic and she has problems with her memory, and she gets back to her apartment and it's full of rocks and stones. It's a very philosophical book. She ponders on what these stones mean, and I was hooked from the beginning. I made a 1-minute review of it. I'll link to the review here. It's a fantastic book, and I think it's going to be one of my top 3 books of the year, of all the books I've read, not just the Booktuber books. I also read The Brain Hunter by Matt Wall. This is a short book, like a novella. It's the beginning of a series, and it's about this mad scientist who happens to be also dead. He's a zombie, and he collects the brains of his victims, which is hence the title, The Brain Hunter. And it's an entertaining tale if you like. Now I'm currently reading Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, another booktuber. She's a fantasy booktuber and she has a large following. I don't know how many thousand subscribers she has, a few thousand. And this book has got more ratings on Goodreads than the other books I've been talking about. The average on Goodreads for this is 3.86, but Goodreads average ratings aren't a judge of anything. Moby Dick had 3.5, and it's one of the great American novels. This is a fantasy story. It's a very long one. It's over 700 pages, and it's got many different characters. It's starting quite slow, and I'm only 13% of the way through, so I'm in no position to judge the whole book yet, and it's the beginning of a series. The other books haven't been published yet. I don't know if they've been written yet, and I'll let you know how I get on with it when I finish it. And the final book I want to talk about is The Secret of Hartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden of Books and Things. I got into Booktube through Katie Lumsden, watching her videos about Dickens, as I have this project to read through Dickens' oeuvre, and through her I started participating in Booktube readathons, and then I started my own Booktube channel. Secret of Hartwood Hall is released in March. I've requested it on NetGalley. I don't know if I'll get that request or whether I'll have to buy it when it finally comes out in March. I imagine from Katie that it'll serve Victorian setting. Katie Lumsden is an expert on Victorian times, and I'm sure it'll be an exciting read. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on a copy. All of these books, I don't have my hands on a physical copy. These have all been ebooks. So, have you read any books by booktubers? Do you have a favourite? Are there any you could recommend? Again, put it in the comments below. I'm a booktuber. Should I write? NaNoWriMo is coming up in November, where a lot of people on Booktube are encouraged to write so many pages a day or so many words a day. It doesn't interest me. When I was a teenager, I had this idea for a novel, a post-apocalyptic novel set in Antarctica in a domed world with this guy who's thrown out of the domed city. It was going to be called Non-Citizen. This year I read a book called Forager by Peter R. Stone, which had the vibe that I wanted for my book all those years ago, maybe 40 years ago, but I've got no intention of reviving that idea. It was just fun to read a book with the same feeling. His book was set in post-apocalyptic Melbourne. I'm also a bit old to start writing. I know some writers like José Saramago and Annie Proulx, who wrote Shipping News and Brokeback Mountain, started late in life, but I think it's too much effort. And I prefer Booktube at the moment as my creative outlet, and maybe I'll find different creative outlets in the future. These books by Booktubers cover a wide range of genres, and I haven't been disappointed with a single one so far. And I hope that continues. You could believe me or not. Yes, I have an interest. I interact with some of these Booktubers and their comments. And if I didn't like their books, I wouldn't have read them. I'd have just DNF'd them and not said anything. I'll put a note of all the books down below. If you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe below, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.